We know that their life could change in an instant. And with that, you don't want to be caught without any formal training processes in place because that could definitely impact your revenue. You want your business to be able to operate in your absence. And so that's the benefit of having those well thought out procedures and plans in place.
Hello, Profit First entrepreneurs and thought leaders. I am so excited today. We are going to talk about a topic that everybody wants to talk about. And we're going to talk about teams, and not just teams, but really about making your team perform amazingly so that they are really an asset for you. Today, we have a very special guest. Her name is Dr. Tonya Robertson. And Dr. Robertson, she is the founder of a company called Focus Training Solutions. And what they do is they're very proactive about ensuring that government entities, corporations, nonprofits, and small businesses worldwide understand the importance of developing team so that their team members are not just a liability, they're an asset, right? Dr. Robertson believes that all business owners should live life without regrets while having a profitable business fueled by well-trained teams. Dr. Robertson takes a holistic, strategic, and relational approach to ensuring the ongoing success of her clients and believes that the strength of the team is each individual member. The strength of each member is the team. So join me in welcoming Dr. Tonya Robertson to the platform. Hey, Dr. Robertson, how are you doing today?
Hey there, Suzanne. Thank you so much for having me. I'm wonderful. Thank you for asking.
Well, I am so excited because, one thing that I think this pandemic has taught us is that it's really about retention, right? When you recruit these A players, they have options. They're well trained and the whole world wants them, especially when they see your company shine. And I'm really excited to talk about your topic because, I think sometimes as business owners, we really have to stand in that gratefulness, that gratefulness of having a team that supports us, that allows us to have that break. So excited about our conversation today.
Yes.
So Dr. Robertson, tell me about why this topic really caught you. Where did this interest stem from? What made you go into this field?
Okay. There's several reasons, but I'll I'll keep it short and sweet. So, just in general, I was an educator for many, many years. And so during our professional development sessions as an educator, I always felt that they were so unengaging and so just absolutely boring. And I always thought to myself, we know better. We're educators. Like, we deliver education to others. So we are the experts in creating and delivering engaging training. So why on our professional development days is the, learning and development session so uninteresting? And I said, you know what, when it's my time to shine and when it's my time to create my business and to create opportunities for others, I'm going to make sure that I am one, creating engaging learning and training experience for folks. So that was one. Then two, as I began to just explore the business atmosphere as a new CEO, one thing that I was finding is that there were other CEOs, business owners that were hiring teams, but they had no path forward. They were really unclear about how to train the team, what an effective training program looks like. So all of those things they weren't super clear on. Once they passed over the hiring hurdle, it was like, whoo, I'm done. That was a lot of effort just put into, hiring, reviewing all these applications and resumes and doing the interviews. Like, okay, we're good to go now. And so I'm like, I found that to be, quite a myth in itself, because I'm like, no, the work is really just beginning.
Oh, yeah, I totally agree with you. The work is beginning, right? When you've got someone super eager or they're pad of paper and their pencil and they're like, what do I do next, boss? Right?
Yes.
That's where the work begins, really. I'm curious, I know a lot of small businesses, a lot of them don't have a formal training program, I imagine, out there in the real world. I know a lot of big businesses, large corps that I've gone to don't have a formal training program. And let's talk about why it's so important to have a training program and what is the components of a good training program?
Yeah, great question. So for one, it's super important because it prevents you from just flying by the seat of your pants and training on the go, in which, I've seen and witnessed in some of my own clients, it just creates that CEO burnout. It contributes to that. It contributes to the overwhelm. All of those negative feelings that make you want to quit. That's what it does when you do not have an effective training, well thought out program in place. And so when you do have one, it's very much quite the opposite. You're able to just kind of focus your attention elsewhere, particularly on other revenue generating activities if you desire, or, back to the places and, redirect that attention, I should say, maybe to your family or all those things and reasons and time considered factors that you wanted to spend your time as a result of the reason you went into business in the first place. Some of the components of a training program, usually we frame it according to what I classify as our PIT method. And with that method, it is a method of the CEO just performing their due diligence at the foundational level, really first making sure that your business goals as a CEO are really solidified. And then we'll map those to the training goals. Once that's done, then creating that training needs assessment is super important, because oftentimes we skip that. We really skip creating that learner persona, really understanding what the learners need in order to be successful. And oftentimes, Susanne, what I find, not super often, but occasionally what I find is that at that foundational level, once that training needs assessment is completed, some CEOs find out that training isn't actually the problem. And so there are other organizational issues that need to be addressed prior to training. It could be leadership, it could be performance issues, but oftentimes, more than not, training is usually that blanket solution if there are ever any issues with an employee, team member, anyone just not performing the way that they should. And so after that training needs assessment is done, then, creating the training, because there are many different ways in which the training can actually be delivered, but making sure you're delivering it in a way that is going to be easily digestible for the team member, easily accessible, and then it caters to their learning style as well. So we often create the training in the same training, but in different ways so that, it caters to the different learning styles. And then you want to make sure you can assess. And it's like, how do you know that learning has taken place, that your outcomes, your goals, the reason why you created the training, how do you know that that has been conquered and achieved? And many people, Susanne, often more than not, from what I'm seeing, is they skip that assessment phase. It's like, I really don't know. They did the training, but, I didn't do my due diligence as a CEO to find out, how it's really going. So, yes.
I love that. So starting with, what's important for the organization as a whole. And then, after that is what are the specific needs within the organization that maybe more urgent, like performance issues, and then developing a training program around that. That is really good. I always think of the example of Amazon, right? Amazon is, multi-billion-dollar company, and they probably have turnover. People last 1 week at Amazon in many cases, and they have to get that person on the assembly line. They have to get them effectively, really day one, right? They have to be performing. Otherwise, they're not going to be able to keep up with what they need to do, but keeping things moving from going from New York to California, right? And so that training program has to be succinct, that you can teach that person and get them onboarded really quick.
Yes, it definitely is. The onboarding, right when they come out the gate, the onboarding and the orientation, it's important that, you set those standards and provide the team members and employees with that information very early on. And I like to equate it with, with dating, you want to make sure that you're putting your best foot forward as a company, because now more than ever, the employees have options. They have options to choose, because many organizations are starved for great team members. So it's like, hey, I don't quite like what's happening here. I've been here a week. let me check out my other options. So it's very important now that that first impression is the best impression and that you're able to maintain that and really create systems and training processes that let the employee or team member know that you're really concerned about them as a person and their lifelong learning instead of just, do this job, do this job. So doing that lets them know that you are absolutely invested in their overall interest in the company.
I love that. You got to take advantage of that moment when they first start,
Oh,
that
yes.
moment where they're eager eyed and they're like excited about where this might go. And the last thing you want to do is have that person sitting there idle,
Yes.
playing solitaire at their computer. You want to get them started immediately. So Dr. Robertson, when you're looking at a training program, what goes into an effective training program?
Yeah, very good. So just to kind of add to what I was saying, so you want to do that training needs assessment, right? Very important. Don't skip that, guys. The training needs assessment. You want to make sure that the content is really solid, right? You want to make sure that you created the content in various ways, and you want to make sure that you have a method of assessing them at the end. So those are the four main components that go into an effective training program.
I love that. So did they ever figure out how to make training interesting in that first job?
No, the answer is no. No for all of the corporate and public school jobs that I've had. So the answer is no.
It's interesting because, in public accounting, you can imagine we train a lot of people just out of college. A lot of times it's their first job out of college. And I know one of the things that we like to do is really relate every step to real life. One of the things that we do, when you're doing a tax return is you got to make sure that you don't miss any documents, right? So we confirm the documents with the client and, we use that becomes a checkoff list, right? Make sure everything got input. And I always tell them the story is you don't want to get that underreporting audit letter. You don't want to be on the phone with that IRS for 3 hours, because something didn't get put into return. So we kind of like make a story out of it as we're doing it, just to make it more interesting to show how important every step is that we do with them.
Yeah, and that is actually one of my preferred learning. That's the way I like to learn. And that's also a preferred suggestion for many of the clients that I encounter, the scenario-based learning. Why? Because it's relatable. You're creating stories and paths that the learner can follow and which, really mimics their real life. And then they're able to just kind of practice and navigate the scenarios and make mistakes in a safe environment before they actually really do it. So the scenario-based learning for the situation you just described, I feel like is super fitting. Yep, scenario-based learning. There's just all types of great learning, even with virtual reality now. I'm really impressed that it's really just catching a hold, and many organizations are beginning to adopt it more so now more than ever. It's really becoming a thing because again, the learner is just really immersed in the actual environment. And it's, particularly in arenas like, fire safety or just safety in general, automotives, it provides an environment where we can kind of screw up and it be okay. So, yeah.
Oh yeah, I've seen the commercials with Facebook Meta, in the metaverse, you'll be able to go in there and do heart surgery if you're a medical school student. I'm like, ooh, that's really neat. 3D heart training there. It's going to be very interesting. Another thing that I like to see too is for us, I think training starts with a hire, right?
Mhm.
I know one of the things that we like to look for is we like to look for people that desire to be masters at their craft, not good at their craft, but masters at their craft, because they're always going to be seeking out learning opportunities and further training and development at that point. They enjoy learning.
Mhm.
They have that thirst for it. It's something that we look out for with them.
Yeah, great point. I know that there's been some controversy recently about just whether one should hire for culture fit first or whether one should hire for like skills and knowledge first. Just for me personally, I've seen where some organizations are leaning more towards the culture fit first now, making sure that that person will fit in with the team and, gets along well with the team and is really a cheerleader for the culture. And then under that circumstance, if all checks out well there, then they feel like, if there are any learning gaps or if the person is not as strong in with the particular, job that they were hired for, then they're able to train to that. Versus the other way around, coming in a master and not so much considering the culture. But great point. Thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah. And skill set, it has its place, right? You don't want to hire somebody, at least for us, we want to make sure they have the bachelor's degree in accounting.
Yes.
Because, we want to make sure they're going to like what they're going to be doing every single day.
Yes. Now, in your case, definitely, there are some different considerations for your field that, you must have in place versus saying, hey, they definitely fit into the culture, but, they're lacking in the skills, and especially, when it comes to accounting and numbers and profit first and all of that, there's some extra layers of precaution.
Oh, yeah. I mean, especially for you guys that are doctors out there, you don't want to bring in someone that didn't go to medical school or didn't get that training for being a physician assistant or a medical assistant. There's some basic levels that are there. It really just depends, right?
Yes,
like if they're working for
it
Amazon.
definitely depends for sure.
Yeah, like if you're working for Amazon, you don't need to have box before, so it just really just kind of depends on where you are. Now, Dr. Robertson, one of the things that you said that was interesting was having to test to make sure that that training was retained, right? Let's talk about what does that look like? What does that look like, making sure that the training is retained and are testing for that?
Yeah, so that could look like many different things, actually, Suzanne. So it could be very formal or it could be very informal. There could be just a simple conversation to be had with the team member about, the training that took place or the activity that they just completed. And, if they're able to successfully explain it back to you, hey, check mark. I recognize that they understand. So there's that level of assessment. There's, the more formal types of assessments, whereas you're doing multiple choice questions and, fill in the blank responses. There are also assessments in which, someone has to just kind of show you. You're observing or just kind of looking over their shoulder just to make sure that they understand the process. It's a variation.
And Dr. Robertson, where do you see training going wrong? Where are the mistakes that entrepreneurs are making in training?
Oh, very good. So I see oftentimes a lot at that very foundational stage with that training needs assessment. Many entrepreneurs are just skipping over that altogether. And it's like, they're creating a one-size-fits training for everyone. And it's like a big no-no. Right. So that assessment at the very beginning, that needs assessment is super important. So along with that, one of the other areas in which I see training going wrong is, I like to call it the sister to training, is the delegation component. And so with delegation, I see that go wrong more often than not, because the team members are often provided tasks to complete. And, with that, they don't have the resources that they need, or they haven't been provided proper training and such. And so with that, there often is some friction between the CEO and the team member, and, which can create negative vibes in the workplace. And so on the topic of delegation, it's just where I see the CEOs going wrong is that, many do not understand, many of the components involved in successful delegation. Micromanaging stems from, some fears associated with delegation. I think that the CEO just really oftentimes thinks that the employee should come in and they just should really get it. Like if I hire you and you said you have skill A, B, C, and D, then, definitely, why do I need to train you? Or why, can I just delegate these items to you and you just know how to do it?
And I think that's even more challenging for CEOs because, especially entrepreneurs, because a lot of times we were the ones in class that outpaced everyone else. We were the ones that finished the assignment first and was like, okay, you guys catching up now. I'm ready to go on the next part. Give me something else new to learn. We're used to being the pacemakers in our industry. And sometimes because we learn a little bit faster or it was our natural gift that we assume that everyone has that gift. I remember when I first became a supervisor in a public accounting firm, I remember like the first person that was assigned to me and I remember like looking at their work and I'm like, what? This is what you're turning in? And then you realize that not everybody, that we don't all start from the same place, and that's where you learn that, we have to work with where someone is starting at and improve upon that. But, a lot of times the CEOs, we're just busy, right? We're just busy. And so training seems more like a burden than an investment. Or we just, we trained ourselves many times. And so we don't get that, we need to do it. But you're right. We absolutely need to take that time and look at it differently from a different perspective. We're investing in someone, we're investing in not a payroll expense, but an asset that is going to generate revenue and profit for us later on.
Yeah, very true. And then especially, if the outlook is to eventually scale or franchise, or just duplicate the model in any manner, just creating the formal effective processes and training procedures is really important. Secondly, especially with COVID, just kind of recently being a heightened thing, we know that their life could change in an instant. And with that, you don't want to be caught without any formal training processes in place, because that could definitely impact your revenue. You want your business to be able to operate in your absence. And so that's the benefit of having those well thought out procedures and plans in place.
Absolutely. You don't want to be able to not be able to fulfill those orders because the only person that had the knowledge just like walked out, right? We don't want that to happen to anybody. So definitely training's important, videos of how to do that written. Is there a better method out there, Dr. Robertson, that just seems to stick better? Or what's the best training method that works?
So it depends. I wish it was like a concrete answer, but it depends on the learner. And just because, we're all complex. We're all complex beings. I like video learning format. And then, when you consider the type of society that we have today, we're a YouTube society. When we want to know something, know how to do something, we want to go right to YouTube and we want, to look at a 60-second or 2-minute video, know how to do it and be on about our day. It just depends. And in addition to that, I also like to have something in my hands as I'm doing the training so that I can mark on and highlight. So it's a combination of both, I feel like is the best solution when you're creating that training, making sure you create it in several different forms so that it appeals to each of the learning styles.
I love that. You guys remember that. And I'm probably going to say it not right, Dr. Robertson. Please feel free to correct me because you definitely know better than me, that tactile learner, the visual learner, and the one that it's auditory, right? We all have different styles of learning and we want to make sure that program can encompass that. And we have to get specific team member really adapt so that they can learn in their method and how they learn.
Yeah. And I think the most exciting part is that, it's training delivery, it's changing, it's as the workplace landscape has changed, it does not have to look like sitting at a desk, looking at a computer, clicking buttons. It could come in so many different forms in which, I'm just super excited as I watch this transformation occur.
Well, I am excited about it. I think that's really neat and things that are upcoming. So Dr. Robertson, one of the things that I like to ask our guests is if you could leave our viewers and our listeners with one piece of advice, what would that piece of advice could be? It could be personal or business.
I would say you cannot skip the CEO work when it comes to having a team. Okay. And when I say that, spend time with them, getting to know your team. And also just really making sure that you are understanding how to maximize having a team. But as I had mentioned before, many CEOs want to skip the CEO work. And it's like, okay, you're on board, you go do what you're supposed to do. When, however, there's some planning and some foundational work that the CEO needs to put in advance and throughout the duration of having that team in order for the team to be successful. It's not a 100% hands-off approach.
Oh yeah, definitely. So you guys definitely make it a priority to train your team. And I'm guessing, so I haven't done a scientific experiment on it, but I'm sure Dr. Robertson, you've been involved with scientific experiments. But I would bet that if you invest in training of your team and not just like just superficial, but really heartfelt, investment of training in combination to hiring the right person, I bet they stay longer. I bet that increases longevity too.
Yep, that is definitely one of the benefits, Suzanne. You hit the nail on the head. Yes, that longevity is a benefit. And it creates the sense of belonging. You're training the team, you're providing them with options to grow. And in addition, you're getting to know them, their likes, their dislikes, they're just them as a human. You're understanding, what makes them tick. So all of that conclusively contributes to a better work environment, one that builds a sense of belonging. And I was having a conversation with someone not too long ago, a business owner, and we're talking about the subject of training the employees. And someone said that they did not want to train the employees well because they were afraid that they would leave. If they provided them with too much knowledge, they would be too smart and they would go off and kind of utilize that information in someone else's environment. And I thought that was really interesting. And I know for myself and, my team, I'm always eager for them to, spread their wings and fly. I know that when they come on board, I do want them with me forever, but I don't, there's always great opportunity. And I want to make sure that they're with me. I train them, they're happy while they're with me. But day one, I want to know, what are your goals and aspirations? If that means that you'll be a part of Focus Training Solutions for many years to come, great. If not, great. Either way, but we're going to, make sure we train you. We're going to make sure we sharpen your skills, get to know you so that you're a part of our forever family, whether you're with us or not.
I love that. I love that. And, a confident employee is an employee that really enjoys their job, right? When you are confident in what you're doing every day and you're doing it well, your job is fun. It's not a toll. It's not like, oh my gosh, somebody just put something on my desk. I need to figure it out. And when you've got a team member that's having fun, you just got longevity, and longevity equals profits.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And also happy customers, because you have those team members that are really invested in your company, your organization, and, they want the customer. They take pride in doing their work, and that shows on the other side of the fence with the customer. So, that's something that you definitely want anyone listening to consider, just all of the benefits of having a well-trained team and investing in a team. I mean, it's a lot of work, it's just the nature of business, but, in the end, the rewards are definitely sweet because you can have that time freedom back at some point. You can redirect your attention in other places. Revenue generating activities is one of those places, or however you desire. So, the rewards are definitely great.
I love it. I love it. And so, Dr. Robertson, how do our viewers and listeners contact you? How do they contact you to learn more, to work with you?
Yes, absolutely. Well, you can visit wetrainyourteam.com. That's wetrainyourteam.com. And you can also follow us on any of the social media outlets, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. We're at Focused Training Solutions on all of the social media outlets.
I love it. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put Dr. Robertson's information in the show notes. So for you guys that are driving in your car, you'll be able to go back and click on her sites to gain access to contact her.
All right. Thank you so much, Suzanne. It was a pleasure sharing this information with all of you that may be listening.
It was a pleasure having you. Thank you for sharing your wisdom.